with both hands. I gotta feel the kick inside. Oh, fire. Nobody living in a perfect world. Everybody's out there crying to be heard. But I got a new fire burning my heart, lighting up the darkness and moving like a meteorite. Oh, fire. When everything just falls in line, we live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are in our plate. Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are in our plate. Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. From our mistakes, the deepest cuts are healed by faith. Now I believe. Oh, fire. Oh, fire. Oh, fire. Oh, fire, fire, fire. Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our Thank you so much. Welcome to RenéMarie Stroke of Luck. I'm RenéMarie, and we have such a powerful, inspiring show tonight. Debra Meyerson and her husband, Steve Zuckerman, are Judy and my special guest on this special evening broadcast of RenéMarie Stroke of Luck. Judy, thank you so much for setting this up. You always are doing extraordinary work in our show.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're very welcome. And thank you to Debra and Steve for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. We're going to get right into the conversation because we really have a lot to hear. And what I was saying to you, Debra, before is what I love about you is your persistence and passion and just determination to make a difference in the stroke world. And, you know, it's almost, you know, everybody knows that I suffered a stroke as well, but I understand we can either shrivel after you have a stroke, or you can go to bat for everything. Yeah. And you are doing such an incredible job in the world, in the stroke world. So, and the aphasia world as well, which is a whole nother piece that I find so important to talk about, because aphasia never really had a label on it when this happened to me. It happened to me 30 years ago, over 30 years ago. So it never had a label on it back then. And now it's a really intricate part of a stroke or brain injury, especially for someone who is in your career path.
Yeah.
So, yes. So tell us a little bit, tell us, if you don't mind, start off with what you were doing prior to your stroke.
I am a professor of organizational behavior at Stanford. I am the work right before my stroke, sabbatical. Really a lot of work in the sabbatical.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't, when I was reading something else on your website, and I forget what it is, and you could tell me what it was, but it said like, it took me like months to say these few words. And I remember The Boy Ran. They gave me the book, that like a child's book, The Boy Ran, and I couldn't even get it out. I couldn't even understand what it said. So I really can understand it. So go ahead. Sorry about that.
I am a professor, and 10 years ago, I had a stroke, and really, I am shocked, and I am healthy.
You were healthy. So there was no, what was the specific, maybe Steve wants to tell us what the stroke was caused by.
So Deb's stroke was something called a dissection, which is a tearing of the wall of one of her arteries. In her case, it was her carotid artery, but up in the brain portion, the cerebral carotid. And it has the same effect as a blood clot in that it blocks the flow of blood, but it's not caused by a blood clot. It's caused by this tear that, for some reason, it happens to people all the time, but the blood flow pushes the tear back and it heals itself, but hers didn't. And the flap made a complete blockage of that artery.
Wow.
So,
Debra, did you have any signs before the stroke? Did you have headaches or any of the signs?
Yes. 6 months ago, 6
6 months prior, or
yeah,
6 months prior to your stroke?
Prior, yeah.
You had headaches continuous?
Yes, really bad headaches. And I am too
Take your time. Take your time. We have all night.
One is my my daughter and I really to 80. I drove to 80.
well,
Yeah.
I want to point something out, though. This is really a pinpoint moment for all of the family and loved ones to see that you're giving her the time to try to process it and to try to think about it. And you asked her before you went in, because sometimes we always talk about that. Sometimes, loved ones, this is as new for them as it is for us, and we don't know what to do. We want to love them to death. We want to protect them, but yet overprotecting them doesn't give them the possibility to recover.
And you can't put words in their mouth. If you, Deborah, start saying something, the other person shouldn't start guessing what you're going to say. They should give you time to say it.
Yeah.
Because you have aphasia, it takes time, and they have to have patience and love you through it.
Pinpoint moment, very important.
And I often, when I give talks to groups of care partners, which is what we call my role, we kind of switched from caregiver to care partner because we thought it was more reflective of the relationship we want. I often say that it was the 6 most important words I learned, and somewhat embarrassingly, it took me 3 years to figure out, would you like me to help? Because it is so tempting to jump in and help. But so what Deb was saying is, in addition to the headache she had before the stroke, she had 2 episodes where she got disoriented, and even kind of came close to blacking out. And both times within 20 seconds, it was gone and she was back to normal. But she did go to the doctor, go to the neurologist, had a full workup, I don't remember if it was an MRI or a CAT scan.
MRI.
An MRI, and they just didn't see anything, because in hindsight, and it's just guesswork, but what the doctors think is she had this dissection and it would very temporarily close, but then it would just open itself back up. And that when she had all the testing done, it was open. So it didn't show anything. So it's one of those, just, we can only just chalk it up to bad luck. It sucks, but it's bad luck.
Yeah. What would be your advice to someone that persistently has a headache and persistently has a 20-second blackout? Like, what would be at this point, I would say, like, you be on those doctors, but from your experience, what would you both say to them?
It's really, my doctor is really, really great, and she doesn't see the signs.
I mean, like, we're not doctors, we're not medical professionals, so we've got no standing here. But like you just said, I mean, I think if there's a lesson we've learned is, you have to be your own advocate, and your family has to be your advocate, or a friend has to be your advocate. And if the answers you're getting, I mean, the doctors, most of them are wonderful and they're skilled and they really care, and they've got a couple hundred patients. And I've got
limited time.
I've got one wife. So it is just a given that I am going to care more about her than they are. And so if we're getting explanations that don't make sense to us, just keep asking questions and keep, but
I really, a lot of the doctors, I love the doctors.
And they saved your life. And sometimes, I mean, again, there are great advances in science. We have a very close friend who just had a stroke, and fortunately it was from a clot, and they got him to the hospital within a couple hours, and he had TPA, and his symptoms post-stroke are not 0, but dramatically reduced from what would have happened if they hadn't gotten there. The kind of Deb's stroke TPA wouldn't have done any good.
I think everybody should listen to their inner voice. And if you've gone to your neurologist, and even if they're a great neurologist, and you're not getting answers and you feel there's something really wrong, my feeling for my family would be, I would go straight to the hospital. And I'd say, I want a CAT scan. I'd tell them what's wrong. And I want a CAT scan, an MRI, and an MRA.
Yeah.
Something's
that's
wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, we all know that in the back, you know, afterwards.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, when I had my stroke, it was 1989. I think it was 89 I had my stroke in. So, you know, strokes are so in the backdrop. They weren't even on the cut, you know,
That's true.
the cusp of, you know, being as on the forefront of the news as it is today.
Yeah.
So, but you know, you know, today, you know, you have to do what you got to do, you know, when you have a stroke, and strokes are so they're so common. They're not common, but they happen to so many people. You know, stroke is the first leading cause of disability in the country, which is devastating news. That's devastating. And it used to be more devastating because, you know, it was the first leading cause of disability. And it was like you were just left to suffer the repercussions after you had this stroke. But now there's so many advocates for it, you know, and you got to have a person like your husband who fights for you and, you know, and goes, you know, and does what's right. You guys are so blessed to have each other, you know, on this journey, you know.
That's true.
Yeah, it is. It is. So Deb, talk to us. I mean, we were talking about aphasia before, and we'll get a little bit back into more about your story. But I mean, I try to, one of the things I always try to tell people is explain to us how it feels to have aphasia, you know, because people wouldn't even understand that. Do you, you know, you're understanding my question, or maybe I'm not.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's frustrating. It's frustrating. It's really frustrating. It's
Is it frustrating?
yeah.
It is.
You have thoughts and you can't get them out, and you have words, you can't say them. And when you say them, sometimes they don't sound right, or people get impatient when you're saying something, or you might refer to, let's say, a fork and call it a spoon or something like that. You know, those are signs.
I like to say, I'd like to say that identity
theft. What a great.
And the book is titled Identity Theft, and Stroke Onward is the name of the not-for-profit I and Steve founded.
Wow, that's such a great, that's why I said you guys are like, okay, this happened to us, you know, let's get everything balanced again in our lives as much as we can. And what are we going to do with these things that have happened in our lives? You know, we're gonna bring the awareness to people. What's one of the things, Steve, that you like, if you had 3 things to share with an audience, what is the 3 top keys that you would bring to them?
About what?
About strokes, about preventing strokes.
Yeah, the preventing or cure.
So I mean, I think, you know, clearly preventing strokes is hugely important. And I think, you know, that's not our focus of our work, although of course it's something that we care about, but lots of people are doing that, fortunately, far better than, for instance, when you had your stroke.
Right.
And I think, you know, the trying to make people aware of BFAST and the acronym of the signs of stroke, and getting people to hospitals quickly and knowing which hospital to get them to. And there are some great organizations we've met that are creating better systems to make sure that, you know, when EMS picks you up and they think it's a stroke, they don't take you to the nearest hospital. They take you to one that actually has a stroke center.
Right.
So I think, you know, that stuff is critically important. It's not our focus.
Yes.
Our focus really is on the fact that as we experienced the recovery process, and we wrote about this in a column recently on the American Stroke Association site, that when people would say, how's your recovery going? What they really meant was, how's your rehab going? How's the process of regaining the capabilities you lost? And we got a lot of great help on navigating the system to get help with rehabilitation. But nobody told us that, one, Deb might not get everything back. And if she doesn't, or even if she does, there's this second journey that we call the emotional journey. Not necessarily, you know, I mean, a lot of the guides talk about you might be depressed, you might be anxious, sort of clinical emotional diagnoses, but just for people who don't go that far into a clinical condition, it's just an emotional process to, and what we really came to believe is key, is to really rebuild your identity. Because so much of who Deb was, how she saw herself, and candidly who I was and how I saw myself, even though she had the stroke, changed after the stroke. But until we acknowledge that, if you're trying to be the person you were and don't renegotiate your own identity to understand who you are and who you can be in the face of your disabilities, then it's very hard to really rebuild that rewarding life with purpose. And so, you know, I think if there is one thing that is our focal message, it's that when you think about your recovery, yes, try to do everything you can to get capabilities back, for sure. And think about who you are and who you want to be in the face of anything you don't get back.
Right.
So I think that's our core message.
I just want to go back a little to when you had the stroke, Deborah. When you had the stroke, you went to the hospital and you were losing various things a little at a time. And I believe your son was away at college or something and came back. And it must have been very frightening for your family. And what the outcome was after several days was that you totally lost control of your speech and you were paralyzed and the fear must have been terrible. And yet you strive really hard and look, you're back and you're working, but it took a lot of really difficult days and but you must have been devastated. And if, you know, Steve and the rest of your family must have been devastated. And I know the feeling because it happened with my dad.
It's it's 10 years since my stroke, and still I am waiting rehab. No, it's still speech therapy and occupational therapy and physical therapy is
Ongoing.
And once a week.
Wow, that's incredible.
And some patients don't have the good fortune of to do things.
I mean, sort of the resources, one, good insurance, two, the ability to convince your insurers to keep paying for things longer than they want to, the ability to do some things on self-pay. That is one of the things that longer term, we hope to be able to work with other people to kind of just change the system.
Yeah.
We're in
But-
there.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things, everybody reacts to a stroke differently. We talk about this all the time. And one of the challenges we are having about talking about this emotional journey to redefine who you are, rebuild your identity, is that different people are ready for that at different
Yeah.
times.
Mm.
Deb, the first 3 years, we talked about her stroke, that we were going to look back on it and it was just going to be a 6-month blip or a 1-year blip. As time kept passing, we kept lengthening how long the blip was, but we were in a mindset that she was going to regain everything and go back to life as she knew it.
Right.
And I think that kind of, you could call that hope, you could call that denial,
No, it's hope.
you could call that determination. But for Deb, and there was one therapist that we've stayed very close to who said, if 18 months in, when I was working with you, I had suggested that you need to think about what life could be like not being a professor, I would have ended up with a
Yeah.
bloody nose, fat lip, or both.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's true. Deb would have said, I don't want to work with that person anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I agree.
And
What I loved, I'm sorry, Deborah, but what I loved about you, Deborah, was when you were speaking initially with us, you still referred to yourself, which you are, a professor. You are a professor.
Yeah.
You didn't lose that because you had a stroke. And I love that about you. Now you're teaching in a different aspect.
yeah.
You're using your skills that you went to school for and educated yourself for. You had no idea through the process that what you were actually going to be teaching in life. But it's so wonderful the way that you took all your experiences and you're diving in full steam ahead.
Thank you.
That's why I love her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing that I was thinking when you guys were talking was, I've been an advocate for stroke since I had my stroke. And so I've seen many people and I've spoken to many people. And the one thing we spoke about this in the Zoom green room was, insurance, and it's so sad the way insurance is, determine your outcome. And when I was an ambassador for strokes in hospitals, and I've gone to recovery centers and in meetings and stuff like that. And that really, everybody talks about everything, and then it goes right to that conversation about the struggles they have with insurance.
Yeah.
And people, are blessed to have insurance when they have insurance, but then they want to take it away from us. And as we were saying before, recovery for a stroke patient is forever. It's forever. I mean, I would say that I am 85% physically, no, 90% physically capable. And back to, I played softball after and the whole thing. I wasn't as good as I used to be, but I consider myself whole, so.
Yeah.
So.
And I do remember when my dad was in rehab, they put a cap on his physical therapy.
Yeah.
And then they said to me after a very short time, that's it, he's not going to get better.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you haven't given it much time. He needs time to try to walk. And they said, oh, it's going to take too long and your insurance isn't going to cover it.
Yeah.
And it was very depressing.
Yeah, I agree.
I didn't have the money to continue his physical therapy.
So Deborah, I'm sorry, did you want to say something, or I got a question for you? Okay,
Yeah.
so what is the stuff that you share with your audience when you're talking about identity theft? Judy, can you show her book? This is what we're talking about. She wrote a book, her and her husband, you both wrote that book, right? You both,
My
With your
son.
Your son. Oh, wow, wow, wow. So they both, they wrote a book. What's your son's name?
Danny Deckerman.
Wow. Okay. So that's what she wrote, Identity Theft, and that's what we're talking about. We highly recommend that you purchase it. It's really a tool not to just read, but to have on hand as you're going through it. And really that's for families as well as stroke survivors.
And
because-
Renee, I want to also add that Deborah shares various other stories about other families who had stroke and
Yeah.
what they went through, and she describes it in very good detail.
Mm.
Yes, 30, 20, six stroke survivors and doctors and therapists and
Yeah,
friends of ours and friends of the stroke survivors.
Wow, that's
We
incredible.
we in writing the book, two things. One, we really did want to speak to the sort of the community that gets affected by a stroke, not just the survivor, though obviously the survivor has the toughest road. And that also, and we use this line in the book in a couple of places, every person is different, every stroke is different, every recovery is different. And it was really important to Deb in particular to talk about that diversity.
Yes.
It's not just a coincidence that she was a diversity scholar as an academic, but that the diversity is really important because our experience may be barely relevant to some stroke survivors because the type of disabilities the survivor has, the relationships in families are different, the resources they have are different. So it just felt important to include a diversity of experience so that hopefully readers can get something from it that's really relevant, recognizing that everything in the book won't be.
and also the caregivers and what they go through,
Yes.
like your husband or your children that are trying to help you. They have a lot of different responsibilities, and yet they want to stay positive and tell you you're gonna, give you strength to improve.
And the chapter 9 is especially the one that Sarah.
You want me to?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are particularly partial to chapter 9, which is called Stroke is a Family Illness. And we start the chapter with the experience of going to a talk that our daughter was giving. So our daughter was 15 when Deb had the stroke in 10th grade. And when she was in 12th grade, 2 years later, she kind of told us that she was going to give a talk at a school assembly, and she didn't make a big deal out of it. But fortunately, some other parents were like, we don't care what you've got going on. You gotta be there. This is a big deal.
Right.
And we had no idea what she was going to talk about, but she really told the story of how right after Deb's stroke, she really modeled the kind of strength she had seen in Deb, which was fierce independence, determination. I can do it. I can do it alone. I know you're offering me, the school was offering her extra time. Nope, I don't need it. And she was really kind of gutting it out. And then as she started seeing Deb take help from other people because she had to, in ways that she had never necessarily done before, Sarah started letting people into her life and talking about what she was going through, and realized that strength wasn't about being tough and totally independent at all. It was about community and being willing. And, needless to say, Deb and I went through about a box and a half of tissue.
I just saw that in the book.
And really, I am really proud of her and proud of my family. And really, and I am proud of me. uh,
We're all proud of you. You can say it.
Yes, I'm proud of you too.
Yeah.
Yes. I have, go ahead, Steve. Did you have something? that you
No.
wanted-
Go ahead.
No, I have a question because, you know, in the recovery process, you know, Debbie had this, I don't know, and I think it's like me, it's like an inner drive to not let anything overcome us, right? So that's inbred in Debra and myself.
And
But
by the way, I remember that you wanted to get in the car and start driving, and your whole family said, no, not yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was a little,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't, my sister must have said that to you. So, but there's a bridge that I'm trying to understand and pull together. So I want your help on it. It's when we suffer a stroke, we have a brain attack, right? And our brains are scrambled for a while. And sometimes they go back to the way they were. Sometimes it's a new path and you can understand. But when I was a stroke ambassador, they loved when I went into rooms to inspire people, but they said they didn't say, but I said that, you know, I say to the stroke survivors, like, you know, I know you got to do this. You got to fight it yourself. You have to want to get up. You have to want to speak. You have to want to try, which Debra has. So how do we help them to understand that? Because sometimes we, you know, they don't grasp that. They don't grasp that. So, you know, you try to tell somebody you got to throw the ball every day. You have to do this every day, but they don't understand that. How do we navigate around that?
I have no idea. No,
I don't either. And it's something I'm trying to understand.
Steve and I, the hospitals is the different thing, the different thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're.
No,
They encourage
the
Yeah, I'm not sure where Deb was going with that. I mean,
Steve,
you know,
they-
I'd say a couple things about that. And again, we're no experts. We just have our own experience and the experience we've heard of others. One is, you know, like you said, some people are naturally just going to go for it. Others less so. I think one of the things we say a lot is you really want to look forward, not back.
Yeah.
But give yourself room to grieve. That it's not human to think anybody can just lose as much as most stroke survivors lose, and all of a sudden just be peachy cool with it and looking forward all the time. So you've got to give yourself that time to grieve. We got an expression that our daughter, we stole from our daughter, where in a totally different situation, but we would talk about having a pity party.
Yeah.
And we'd call it a pity party because parties have a beginning and they have an end.
Right.
And, you know, we didn't want to let ourselves get sucked into a mindset of pity, but damn, it sucks.
Yeah.
So give yourself space to acknowledge
Yeah.
that and grieve what you've lost. I think the other thing I would say is, you know, at some point, some survivors, most survivors probably, will reach a point where they say, I don't need to work my butt off anymore to regain capabilities because I'm okay with what I've got. And I'd rather spend my time figuring out how to build a life around what I've got, not spending all my time trying to get more back that I might or might not get. So we talk about, you know, everybody's got to make a choice of how much of their time they spend in rehab and focused on that versus rebuilding or adapting. And for Deb, we mentioned before, for 3 years, it was 110% rehab. She did not want to talk about the rebuilding stuff.
Right.
But
Right.
then once she realized, and we forced ourselves to acknowledge that she would not be able to go back to the old job the old job she had. I like your point. She's still a professor. She just
Right.
doesn't have the job she used to have with that title. Then Deb started building, maybe 10% of her time into thinking about adaptation, and then 20%, and then 30%. And, we met people who made that shift way quicker, that sort of, they said, okay, I'm going to be disabled, and that's okay. I want to start building my life. And they maybe got there in 6 months, where, and so everybody gets there at a different point.
Yeah. And at the hospital, your hospital.
Oh, you're commenting on the fact that when she's talking to people at a hospital,
Yeah.
they're probably fairly soon after their
Yes.
stroke.
Yeah.
So the motivational piece is probably relevant for pretty much everybody, because for at least 3 to 6 months, it's sure worth going full
That's
gun.
why I always tell everybody that you kind of have to let the doctors do their thing, because that's after a stroke, that's the most important thing. Trust the doctors to do their thing, with your family, guiding them, and then balance off. Once they're balanced off, then you can begin on the recovery and stuff.
I figured it out.
Yeah.
Deb's always ahead of me. It's just a question of getting it out.
Deb, do you, what I used to do is I used to talk so fast and my brain couldn't catch up to my words. Do you still get very frustrated and you start to speak faster?
No.
No? Good. Good.
No. Before the stroke, really a fast shocker, and now it's really easy.
You speak very well. You speak very well. Very well.
Yes.
Very well. Steve, go ahead.
I was just going to mention that for those in the audience who aren't familiar with aphasia, aphasia can be many different things for many different people. For some, they can't receive information. It gets all garbled, and so they don't understand it. For others, I think you were mentioning before, words come out and it's gibberish. It doesn't mean what they want it to mean. The aphasia Deb suffers most severely from is sort of a word finding. She'll have a thought clear in her mind, but she doesn't come out with gibberish. She rarely says something that doesn't make sense. Well, sometimes I think what she says doesn't make sense. That's a different story.
Every husband says that.
More often, she doesn't think what I say makes sense. So anyway, just for people who aren't familiar with aphasia, it is many different things to many different people, but it's a communication disorder. It just affects the ability to receive and share, not just speech, but written as well, thoughts. It's an expressive disorder. So,
I have a question. I believe, Deborah, you drive to work.
Yes.
Okay.
So half a year after my stroke,
Okay. So my question is, do you carry a card that if a police officer should stop you, that you take out the card and it says, I'm a stroke/aphasia survivor, trouble communicating? Do you have anything like that? Be patient.
Yes. Yeah.
What does it say on your card?
I don't know. I
okay.
have.
Would you even know where to find it at this point?
No.
It's probably in your handbag.
Yeah, I know. I have no. It's really. I don't have the hang rig here.
Handy, yeah. I mean, it basically says what you said, stroke survivor, communication challenge,
Be patient.
be
Yeah,
patient. Yeah.
Yeah, we're thinking about creating one and just like for free to put it on our website. That way if anybody needs one, they could download it, then it's there for them. So that's
When Deb first started traveling independently by car or by plane, we'd write out a whole letter so
Yeah.
she could hand it to the ticket taker at the airport. And, I mean, just because her speech was so much less good than it is now, Deb now can, if somebody's being impatient, she's usually pretty good at, grabbing them by the shirt collar figuratively and getting them to slow down for her.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree.
she's going to say not figuratively. I'll grab them by the shirt collar.
what were you doing in your career path before while this happened or before it happened, or what have you been doing?
No, it's still.
Yeah. So I had gone through one career transition about 7 years before the stroke. I had been in finance and business, and then I transitioned into an economic justice nonprofit that does financial services in underserved communities. And I had started doing that full time in 2006. So then 4 years later was the stroke. And fortunately, it was a workplace that afforded me the flexibility to be there for Deb. I also had the good fortune of a mother-in-law. I don't know if she's listening, but Deb's mom moved in with us, was able to, and moved in with us for 6 months, which sometimes I say was actually more of a gift to me than it was to Deb, because it enabled me to restart other parts of my life that, candidly, living stroke recovery 24/7 is hard.
Yeah.
And it gave me the chance to do it half the time rather than full time. And then really starting about 2 years ago, I started to diminish my time in that job. I'm still there, so that I could start Stroke Onward with Deb. And sort of, I jokingly say, some days I wake up and feel like I have the best of all worlds. I have 2 part-time jobs, both of which I love and feel great purpose in. And some days I wake up and feel like I have the worst of both worlds because I have 2 full-time jobs. So balancing is my challenge, but it's a transition that's working so far.
Well,
I
because
think you're doing an outstanding job with that, Steve.
Yes. So tell us some more about Stroke On Forward. What's the tell us a
Stroke
little about that.
Onward.
So it's,
Stroke Onward. I'm sorry, Stroke Onward.
you want to?
No.
Want me to go?
Yeah.
I mean, really, our mission is to create better systems of support for stroke survivors and their families around this issue of the emotional journey, rebuilding identity and rebuilding rewarding lives. So, we talked before, there's the prevention part, which is absolutely critical. There's the recovery part around new and innovative ways to help people gain more. That's absolutely critical. Our thought was there are a lot of people focused on that, but we didn't see very many at all focused on that piece of, but how do you rebuild your identity and your life in the face of whatever disabilities, big or small, that you end up with? So we have really three major goals. One is to just increase awareness around this issue, and that it really needs to be part of what people think of in the recovery process. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk about it.
You're quite welcome.
Love it. We're happy that we can make it work. We're very happy.
And then the second goal is really about trying to create resources. So, if people recognize it's an issue, what do they have to do with that? And so we're working on things like book discussion guides to make identity theft more accessible, And then the third is ultimately, we'd really like to try to help change the system so that 10 years from now, a family experiencing a stroke actually comes into an environment that's fundamentally different on this issue. And so we're working with people in different disciplines, speech therapy, physical therapy, that teach the degree granting courses about whether there's material that could be part of the curriculum for people who are getting their degree in the therapies that are going to work with stroke folks and doctors. So we're looking at things that might, the whole insurance issue is one we haven't worked on yet, but hope to someday.
And
So those are really our
yeah,
three goals.
And the American Stroke Association, three articles. One is part.
Coming soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on the building awareness, we were fortunate to be able to strike up a relationship with the American Stroke Association.
And the American Heart Association too.
They're part of the same. And so we have a column, a Stroke Onward column that comes out about every other month. There are 3 up on their website, a 4th coming in the next month or so. And, I think that just does speak to part of our whole approach is to collaborate. We don't want to recreate the wheel. We know there are a lot of people out there doing great work. And so if there are people who are doing things that are similar or different, but complementary, we're trying to find them so that, it sounds trite, but 1 + 1 = 3.
We're here. I got to tell you that we're having our first annual Let's Keep the Conversation Alive. And what are we doing moving forward? That's the topic.
Yeah.
And we're having a lot of important people on the show. So
Awesome.
you're more than welcome to join us.
Renee, I actually put Steve's email address on there.
Yeah. Oh, did you get it? Did I send it to him?
I don't know, but I did add it to the list.
Oh, then
The only problem is it starts at 9 and it's going to be kind of early for you. But you could hop on a little later if you wanted to.
Yeah.
What is the
We have a
date?
brain surgeon on,
May-
Dr. Beckley's.
May
And-
3rd. May 3rd.
May
and-
2nd, May 2nd.
Sorry. And we are having all the pieces, like you said, and we have the same thought pattern, Steve, that we really want to join with everybody together to work together to accomplish the goal. Because, we know it's not about going to bat with people. It's about listening and moving forward. But we want to move forward. We don't want to just have a conversation about, well, we do this and we do that, and everybody's doing their own thing, where we all need to come together and fix it and do it. And that is our first annual Let's Keep the Conversation Going, moving forward. So I'll send you the invitation. I know it's probably early on a Sunday. But go to bed early the night before, and then you can go to sleep afterwards. But we have over a year ago, Judy had really Judy connected us to a Dr. Beckley's.
I think it was 3 years ago.
It was
about 3 years ago.
He's a neurosurgeon. He is so on the cusp of changing things. He's a great guy. I'll send you his information.
Awesome.
And I'll send you some of our videos we've had. I actually have one from the telethon that speaks of what he's doing, and he's moving things forward, and he's such a great guy. But over a year ago, they had invited us to the hospital to have a open discussion in their conference center. And we were so excited about that, because he allowed us to bring everybody into the hospital to make a difference. And we were so honored, but then the pandemic hit. So that's why we have to do it virtually this year. Maybe next year we'll do it at the hospital, and we'll have you Skyping in, or, you know, or
Yeah.
Zoom in, whatever. But it really would be a wonderful thing for you to come with us, because we have the same
And-
mindset.
And I like this, email me.
We'll make sure, I think you have both, you have
Yes.
both of our addresses, so yeah, send it to both of us.
I'll send everything to both of you, but
Great.
it would be an honor to, because, you know, we want to do the
I'm
same.
not sure if I have Deborah's email address.
We'll do it offline.
You'll send it to me?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's, you know, we're very excited about it. We've had our telethon for 7 years. Our 7th annual telethon is coming on this coming October. So we're very excited about that. That's about, you know, entertaining and bringing joy to people and bringing doctors and everybody together for information. But it's really about, but this is our baby. This is our baby.
Great.
What is the city?
The city.
Where we do it?
Well, no, we're doing it via Zoom because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
But it's the hospital is, what's the name of the hospital, Judy?
Good Samaritan Hospital.
In Long Island. In
Okay.
Long Island.
Yes.
I'm in New Jersey. They're in Long Island. Long Island was wonderful to me when, like, it just, you know, I went up there for a few shows and things just started to gravitate, and just everybody was just a blessing to me, an honest blessing to me. And I have so many friends and just doctors and nurses and, you know, practitioners and chiropractors, acupuncturists, everybody. So it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
I grew up on Long Island, so you're,
Oh,
you know,
where about?
fuzzies. Bay Shore, on the south shore of Long
Oh,
Island.
that's not far from me.
Wow.
There you go.
Where do you guys live now anyway?
Stanford, San Francisco.
San Francisco. It's supposed to be beautiful there.
We like it.
Wow, it's beautiful.
You know what my favorite place in Bay Shore is? Nikki's on the bay.
Yeah,
Do you know that place?
I do. I can't remember how many years ago it's been since I was there, but
Renee, you were there.
Yes. So we only have a few more minutes, and we always really like to give our guests the opportunity, our special guests, the opportunity to, you know, to have the final comments, because this show is to really highlight you and to talk about your book and to talk about your foundation. And so I want to give you guys a few minutes to share whatever you want to say to our audience.
Really appreciate the Facebook and your really appreciate your extension.
Oh,
Thank you.
It's our pleasure. It's our pleasure. And this is really only the beginning of, I hope, you know, a wonderful relationship, partnership to really make a difference, to impact in a positive way.
and I can't say anything because I always give Deb the last word.
You're smart.
What a great husband you are.
So Judy, did you want to share? When did you put up their book again? And where did you buy their book?
On Amazon.
Amazon. And we
Yeah.
really recommend that you buy Identity Theft. That's really, you know, I love the fact that you guys put a lot of thought process into it. There's a lot of important pieces to that, and why you wrote the book. And, you know, and it's true. I never looked at it like that my identity was ripped away from me, you know, and when people would look at me differently, you know, and I honestly was in my own world. I didn't know what they were looking at me different, but I guess they were looking at me different because physically my arm is a little still off. So, but back then I was, worse.
You were
So
26
I
then.
was 26 years old. So people would look at me differently, and or when I would speak fast to them and speak in circles and not make sense and go back and forth, and they'd just be looking at me like, so I never understood that my identity was taken away from me.
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing that to some light for me. So
And the audiobook is
Yeah, just that if any of your listeners, particularly stroke survivors for whom reading is difficult, Deb actually fired her first publisher because he wouldn't commit to an audiobook. He said, let's see how the book does before we make that commitment. And so we went, it was sort of a non-negotiable. We were, we want it to be accessible. So the audiobook, we were actually lucky through a mutual friend to meet an award-winning, wonderful narrator named Julia Whelan, who recorded the book, and she did a fabulous job with it. So
I'm gonna buy it via audio.
Yeah.
Because when I'm driving, I don't want to waste time. So
I agree. I agree.
right. So we could just put it on.
Yeah.
Why should I, get in my car and from this point to that point, like I'm in a hurry. So I like to turn it on and listen to it in the audio, especially when I was driving to Long Island. It would take me over an hour, and I put something on, inspiration. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to purchase it so I can listen to the audio.
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank
you so much. This has been wonderful.
Yes.
Thank
both,
you.
Deborah, you are an inspiration. I just want to confirm that. Judy and I think you're so wonderful, and it's very powerful story, and your determination. You do stand for, represent what stroke patients, I got to say this properly because I don't want to say in the wrong terminology. You're the example for stroke survivors, and I love it because both of us are not completely back to the way we were, but we're happy. We're happy where we are. We're happy. We're happy. So it's an honor to have met both of you tonight, and we look forward to having you on May 3rd because that's our
May
first.
2nd.
May
That's
2nd.
correct. It's a Sunday.
Straighten me out.
And I want
Thank
you
you.
both to know that I'm very proud of both of you as well, and
Thank you.
all that you've accomplished.
Yes.
Thank you.
So,
And now you're part of our family, our stroke family.
Thank you for welcoming us.
Okay.
yes, we love you guys. Okay, we're gonna close on out. We want to thank everybody for watching tonight. I see a lot of streamers on. We see a lot of streamers on, and of course we'll download the show, and we'll put it on YouTube and on my website, and we'll put it on LinkedIn and all that kind of stuff.
And
So,
I'll send it to many,
Yeah.
various, over 40 different stroke groups.
yeah, you got
Oh.
Judy. Judy is when she gets somebody, forget it. She just goes crazy. So you got a good one on your side now.
Yeah.
So bye everyone. Wait, we always blow kisses. You ready? On 3. 1, 2, 3. Bye
God
everybody.
bless you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Porque tú más que nadie sabes qué pasó en toda mi vida. Yo no sé qué tú piensas, yo no sé lo que haré, yo no sé lo que estoy perdiendo. Yo no sé lo que va a pasar. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. No me puedes oír llorar. El día que caminaste por la puerta, todas las memorias escuchar.